And today my guest has bravely campaigned for changes to the law after her son Barnaby Webber was tragically murdered last year. Barnaby was fatally stabbed whilst walking back from a university night out with fellow victim Grace O'Malley Kumar. He was just 19-year-old at the time. Now, Barnaby's killer, Valdo Kalakane, admitted manslaughter on the ground of diminished responsibility, but his mother, Emma Webber, argues true justice has not been served, says the families have been let down by police and the Crown Prosecution Service. She's calling for a public inquiry into the case, and this week she asked Labour leader Sir Keir Starmer whether he would follow through with the call for a public inquiry or possibly a judge-led inquest. Let's listen to what Sir Keir had to say.
Just a horrific experience that she and all the family members and friends have been
She's keen for legal reform, an area you know well.
She wants a judge-led inquiry, and I said when I met her that I thought that was the right way forward and we would do that.
You will commit to that?
Because I was very concerned when I heard from her directly about the way the system had let her and the other family members down in relation to the charges that were brought, the communications with the family, and so many other aspects. It was a really difficult meeting, Nick, if I'm honest, just listening to what they had been through. And my resolve is to ensure that we have that inquiry and make sure that that doesn't happen to anyone else. I've had too many examples of victims and family members being let down. We have to improve here.
That was Sir Keir Starmer speaking on LBC earlier this week. Well, I'm joined by Emma Webber, the mother of Nottingham attack victim Barnaby Webber. It's really nice to talk to you, and I appreciate you coming in. And for the first time, of course, I want to hear your response to Sir Keir's answer to your question.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for having me, Nana. It's, as I was saying to you off air, I'm so glad to be invited, but genuinely the last place in the world that I want to be, or any of the other family members want to be, is on mainstream media and in the press, having to talk about this horror and seeing his photograph. It's so difficult. I have to look away. But yes, so in answer to your question, I was again glad to be able to put that to Keir. We had met with him back in January of this year, and I think that we've had such trauma as families that we are suspicious of everybody and everything. And so the opportunity to put that to him when he was live on air, I was interested to see what he was going to say. And I'm relieved that he has stood by his words. He's put it in writing as well. We've all got letters from him, and also from the Attorney General, Shadow Attorney General and Shadow Solicitor General. So, yeah, so we are expecting, if Labour do get into Downing Street, then there's already an open door, and that very early on we'll be invited in for a meeting, and they're taking it seriously.
So for those people who don't know, what is a judge-led inquiry, and why will it make a difference?
I think that's the opportunity for full candour, for full information. We've experienced already this week, I say we, and it's always the wider we of the United Families, with our new legal team. You met Neil the other week with me, where already we're experiencing a shutdown of information, instances where we've been promised reports, we've been promised access to information, and we're not allowed to do that now because of GDPR, rolling out all of the sort of old adages, and a lot of backtracking from the CPS and the police. But the police are shut down anyway. So an inquiry or an inquest, judge-led with a jury, they will get all of the information, access to all of those documents, so we know how much has already gone wrong. We dread to think what hasn't yet been uncovered, but I think the only way to make sure that we have got full candour is that route, because clearly all of the individual reviews and investigations that we're having to be involved in aren't. Some are marking their own homework, some are, as the CPS one was, but some are better than others. But they're all silos. It's not that comprehensive, joined up. No, and this is what's happened to us. It's such a car crash. It's such catastrophic error from his treatment for his condition, which we've never denied. We've never denied that he's not mentally unwell.
So this is Callaghan is not well.
Callaghan he knew exactly what he was doing. It was premeditated. It was planned. He had those knives for weeks and weeks, months. He'd only recently bought his sharpener, which he had in his rucksack that he carried. There's so many unanswered questions. I could be here for far too long for your viewers, but, you know, we're not going to accept them. We aren't going to accept how it's been dealt with and managed so far. So therefore, we think that the only way forward now is for it to be made public.
Because, of course, he was sentenced, but he was placed in a sort of hospital-type environment rather than actual prison.
Yeah. He's received no punishment for his crime. He's received an indefinite hospital order, so he's a patient. So he's in the secure unit. But I think when you dig a little below the surface, this individual who's been diagnosed since 2020, there's a catalogue of escalating serious crimes he carried out and attacks whilst he was at university. He graduated with a 2-1 degree in mechanical engineering from Nottingham a year before he slaughtered, thank you for the language from Nottinghamshire Police, our children and Ian, and he tried to kill 3 more people. He wouldn't have stopped. You know, he was clearly unwell. Who would do that if you weren't mentally unwell? This case, what Callaghan did, driving the vehicle as a weapon, stockpiling his weapons, having interactions with an eyewitness but choosing not to kill the security guard of the home he was trying to break into, phoning his brother before and during the murders. This is somebody who knew what he was doing, and so we've had to so far be silent and put up with the ineffectual investigation and the weak prosecution and the over-reliance on doctors, on expert doctors. It has to be uncovered because it's going to happen again. And, of course, the last thing we ever want is to have a replication of what happened in Nottingham last June. Can't bring our loved ones back, but what we can maybe do is make enough noise to make enough change, so things do actually change.
And I notice you use the word slaughtered because this is another awful thing that happened. Of course, the police were sharing WhatsApp messages and describing the brutality of what happened and sharing it amongst themselves.
And this isn't an isolated incident, is it, of police forces in our country using inappropriate messaging, taking photographs and sharing them for no judicial reason, for no criminal reason. It's
just sick, isn't it? I mean, it's not acceptable.
It's sick, but I think what's another example of when we say we're suspicious, we weren't told about any of this misconduct. We found out about it on the Wednesday in Nottingham in January, where we were in the courtroom, after we'd left the courtroom for the sentencing. It had been made public and one police officer had been named and shamed on the Friday in a disciplinary hearing. We knew nothing about it. They hadn't told us at all that any of this had happened. And then we were questioning, because this came about from a local... It's a very small press release. It went to a local, the Nottinghamshire Post, who've been amazing. They released it. We were sent a copy of the link and then started questioning. And then we found out it wasn't just accessing of files and images. This was this shared, disgusting WhatsApp group that we then found out through a whistleblower that Kate Maynell, who's a chief constable, her son was in the WhatsApp group. You know, I don't want to be judge and jury and all of this, and I'm not a detective, I'm not a police officer, I'm not a lawyer, but I think I'm a hopefully relatively sane human being, and relatively educated and questioning person. And, you know, so the more we questioned, the tiny drips of information came out until it got to the point where clearly somebody had said to the chief constable, shut up, close down, don't make any further comments, and that's all we've had, a wall of silence since.
Because this isn't... I mean, what you're describing and the behaviour of the police... is something that has happened on numerous occasions, and we keep seeing it. Why do you think our police are turning like this? What is happening? What is going on?
I don't know, because I have the utmost respect for all emergency workers.
Yeah.
I work for the NHS myself, and I understand gallows humour. I understand the need to be able to process these difficult things. But, you know, the message that was written wasn't written by the officer that was disciplined, actually. The police officer that wrote this message, I believe, has had a management intervention So he's had a ticking off, he's had a word. I wanted to try and address what you've said about how do we make changes, maybe try to make them understand how it feels as the parent of those students who were properly butchered that night. And I asked Kate Maynard to allow me to write to them privately. Didn't want to see them, didn't want to name and shame them.
That's a good idea.
And she shut me down, and she wouldn't allow it. So therefore, I thought I had a choice. I either go quietly or took the stand I took and released the letter publicly, because I'm hoping that, even if one or two emergency workers read that and it makes them think differently in the future, then it doesn't have to be seismic impact that we make as the families, but it's enough to hopefully make people think twice. Because I bet in that WhatsApp group the majority of them are probably parents. Yeah. And so I asked them to pause, walk past your child's bedroom and look at where they've left their shoes, their clothes, their bits and bobs, their stuff they buy on holidays over the years, and imagine that's the last time you'll ever see it.
It's just every parent's worst nightmare. It absolutely is. I don't even know how you're coping with it.
I don't.
I respect the fact that something must change, and we have to make sure that something changes as a result of this. I mean, I'm open, and I've always said that for crimes like this, I don't want to pay for people like this, like Calcone. I would bring back the death penalty. That has always been my way, because we know who did it. There's no question about what they did. And I just wouldn't have them on the planet because it'd make it a safer place. But obviously that's not where we are. In other countries, it absolutely would be. Yeah,
I mean, it's sadly not. Our legal system, our judicial system is archaic and it's out of date. And I've been told that by Alex Chalk, who's our current Justice Minister. Yeah. He said to me, Emma, just because it's the law, it doesn't mean it's right. Yeah. And just because it's the law, it doesn't mean it doesn't need to change. And it does. It has to change. The only good thing that came out of the alleged independent review of the CPS handling of the case, which we do feel like was marking their own homework. The one thing that did come out of it was the director said, this is a clear example of the need for change in homicide laws.
Because it wasn't just those things, it was even the way they treated Calcone. Is that how we say it?
I say Calcone, but both ways, yeah. I mean, he's a monster. He's I don't like to attribute a name to him, but we must remember
how they treated him, instead of, as you said, they didn't take samples of under his nails, they didn't even check his blood to see if he was under the influence or any of the things that they should have done.
I was reading this is joyful sort of Sunday afternoon reading around the corner before coming in to see you today, what is expected of custody of the investigation officer. So Lee Sanders, I'm going to name him, he's a senior investigation officer. And we were told all the way through, he's a murderer, he's a monster, he's evil, he's going down. It's a case of making sure he goes away for life. We didn't have any indication that there could even be a manslaughter acceptance until the 23rd of November. Calcone didn't go into into the secure unit until the 1st of November. So this is somebody that spent 4 days in custody. There was no mental health assessment of him during custody. The police officers, he refused to have intimate samples. They didn't even do their job properly and take the basic non-intimate samples. We've just found out, the first person I've told is you, in the media, that we've been told all the way along, we've had even an email from the Chief Constable confirming that the nail clippings taken have been kept. We were told 2 days ago, oh, actually, no, it wasn't nail clippings, it was nail shavings, which basically, I'm sorry to be blunt about this, but that's going to be the blood and skin of my son and of Grace and of Ian, who were trying to fight for their lives unsuccessfully with this monster who repeatedly stabbed them dozens of times. That's what they've kept. They can't... How could you not? Somebody is driving a van as a weapon. They didn't breathalyse him. They took toxicology without our permission on Barnaby and Grace.
But they didn't bother with him.
But they didn't bother with Valdo Calcone. And in the 24 hours, the first 24 hours in custody, they didn't know what they hadn't interviewed, allegedly, everyone who'd been involved to see if he had any history of drug or alcohol abuse. Why wouldn't you just do your job properly?
Now, had they found that he was under the influence,
he couldn't have pleaded diminished responsibility. No,
and therefore he would be in jail.
Yeah, I mean, am I being cynical? Yes, I am, because it feels rushed, it feels hastened, and it feels like this is clearly somebody who needs to be put away. Where he goes doesn't really matter as long as he's put away. What would the cost be of a full trial, what failings would come out. I'm going to put it out there because I've got nothing but the truth to and questions to ask. But when you start to look into the overwhelming evidence of the expert doctors, and you start to look into them, and you start to look into the timeline, how they approached it, it stinks. And we will, I promise you, and I hope that somehow they hear this and they know who they are, we will uncover the...
Yeah.
You're getting paid £15,000-20,000 for a report. You'd only have to do a couple of those a month.
Yeah.
You know, when did these eminent doctors actually last treat somebody in therapy?
Well, we will get to the bottom of it. And
we will.
Absolutely have to. Yeah. I know during the week you've got a piece coming out in the Times.
Telegraph.
Oh, the Telegraph.
It's not me. They're doing a piece tomorrow, which is another unanswered question that we've had evasion and a wall of silence, either or. The question of because he's a patient, he's in this hospital, as well as it costing upwards of £300,000 a year to treat him and keep him in there. And I have to try and be fair. And this individual has to be treated. However, it appears that he's in receipt of his benefits. So if you read the eminent doctor's report, there's an awful lot given over to how to manage his condition, to make him better, to move him from high security to medium security. And if he does come out, what sort of needs need to be put in place. The statistics are, Nana, that hospital indefinite orders, that the perpetrators, the people that have received them are, it's 87% are out within 10 years, 98% are out within 20. I keep saying this on loop because that's what, despite the judges and despite the unduly lenient sentence review, it's unlikely, it's improbable he'll come out. Yeah, we have to make him the next Ian Brady and Fred West. That's our lifetime of making this monster's name so bad that successive governments and ministers can't risk releasing him. But when you're reading, we had it read to us, one of the reports, and so much was given over to making him better. And I'm not saying you shouldn't try and treat the condition, but this is somebody who was diagnosed in 2020. He chose not to take his meds. Yeah. He lied about his medication. He stockpiled his medication. Obviously the health services in Nottinghamshire have an awful lot to answer for, and that's a full investigation. But at least they've admitted it. Yeah. They've already said, we know we failed. The police in Leicestershire and Nottinghamshire and the CPS, on the other hand, leave a lot to be desired with how they conduct themselves.
Well, Emma, we'll get to the bottom of this. And I appreciate you coming in and telling us and talking so openly about it. Yeah. And it needs to be fixed because we do not want this to keep happening. No. We need our police force, our Crown Prosecution Service to be working effectively. Yeah. And we need people like
public safety
locked up properly. Yeah. Or, in my view, executed. But honestly, that's not available here in this country. Emma Webber, it's really lovely to talk to you. Thank you so much. And the piece is in the Telegraph, is it not?
Telegraph's tomorrow, I believe, yeah.
All right, thank you very much. We'll point people to that. That is, of course, Emma Webber. She's Barnaby Webber's mother, and we appreciate her coming in to tell us how she hopes that things will change, and we've all got to get behind her on that one.